Hello, everyone. In today's episode, let's join English Discovery News to explore an extremely hot topic: the dirty truth of clean energy. The green paradox. We are living through the greatest industrial transition since the invention of the steam engine. Look around you. Governments are banning gasoline cars. Solar panels are covering deserts. Wind turbines are rising in the oceans. The promise is beautiful: a world powered by clean, renewable energy, free from the pollution of fossil fuels. But there is a dark secret hiding behind this green revolution. To save the planet, we have to destroy parts of it. An electric vehicle, EV, might not burn oil, but its battery requires 6 times more mineral inputs than a conventional car. We are shifting our addiction from oil and gas to lithium, cobalt, nickel, and copper. We are not ending the resource war. We are simply changing the battlefield. Today, we dig deep into the dirty reality of clean energy, a story of geopolitical power plays, environmental destruction, and human rights abuses that the glossy brochures don't show you. The new oil, lithium. Let's start with the metal that makes modern life portable, lithium. Often called white gold, lithium is the lightest metal on the periodic table, making it perfect for storing energy without adding weight. Without it, your iPhone would be the size of a brick, and electric cars would be impossible. Demand is expected to explode by 4,000% by 2040. But where does it come from? Most of the world's supply comes from the Lithium Triangle in South America, Chile, Bolivia, and Argentina. Here, beneath the breathtaking salt flats, lies the metal. To extract it, companies pump massive amounts of ancient, salty groundwater to the surface and let it evaporate in the sun for months. This process is incredibly water-intensive in one of the driest places on Earth. Indigenous communities are watching their fresh water sources disappear and their ancestral lands turn into industrial wastelands. The irony is painful. We are destroying local ecosystems in the south to save the global climate in the north. Blood cobalt. If lithium is the heart of the battery, cobalt is the skeleton that keeps it stable. Cobalt prevents batteries from overheating and catching fire. But while lithium is found in many places, cobalt is geographically cursed. Over 70% of the world's cobalt comes from just one country, the Democratic Republic of the Congo, DRC. This is not high-tech mining. In the southern Congo, hundreds of thousands of artisanal miners, including children as young as 7, dig for cobalt by hand. They crawl into narrow, unventilated tunnels with no safety equipment, risking collapse and toxic dust exposure for less than $2 a day. This is the 21st century equivalent of slavery. Every time you drive a sleek electric car or scroll on your smartphone, there is a high probability that it contains a microscopic trace of this human suffering. The supply chain is so murky that even big tech companies struggle to prove their cobalt is clean. The refining choke point. Mining the rock is only the first step. To make a battery, you need to refine that rock into chemical-grade material. And this leads us to the biggest geopolitical anxiety of the West, China. While the United States and Europe were focused on wars in the Middle East, China quietly spent decades building a monopoly on critical minerals. China might not own all the mines, but they own the processing. They refine 60% of the world's lithium, 80% of its cobalt, and nearly 100% of its graphite. This is a strategic choke point more powerful than OPEC ever was. If Beijing decided to stop exporting refined minerals tomorrow, the entire Western green energy transition would grind to a halt within weeks. The West is now scrambling to build its own refineries, but they are years, if not decades, behind. The copper crunch. We often forget the most basic metal of all, copper. It is the nervous system of the electric grid. Wind turbines, solar panels, and transmission lines require huge amounts of copper to conduct electricity. An offshore wind farm uses tons of copper cables to send power back to shore. But our current mines are aging. The grade of, or the amount of actual copper in the rock, is dropping. To get the same amount of metal, we have to dig up and crush twice as much rock, using twice as much energy and water. Analysts predict a massive copper deficit by 2030. Without enough copper, the ambitious climate goals of the Paris Agreement are mathematically impossible to achieve. We are facing a physical limit to how fast we can electrify the world. Deep sea mining. As land resources run dry, humanity is looking at the final frontier, the deep ocean. At the bottom of the Pacific Ocean, in a region called the Clarion-Clipperton Zone, lie trillions of potato-sized rocks called polymetallic nodules. These rocks are packed with pure nickel, cobalt, manganese, and copper, everything we need for batteries. Mining companies say this is the solution: no deforestation, no child labor, just robots picking up rocks from the seafloor. But marine biologists are terrified. The deep ocean is the least understood ecosystem on the planet. Dredging the seafloor could create massive sediment plumes that suffocate ancient species we haven't even discovered yet. It is a gamble. Do we sacrifice the biodiversity of the deep ocean to save the atmosphere above? The International Seabed Authority is currently debating whether to give the green light to this controversial industry. The battery passport. So how do we fix this ethical mess? One solution coming from the European Union is the digital battery passport. Imagine a QR code on every EV battery. When you scan it, you can see the entire life history of that battery, where the minerals were mined, the carbon footprint of the factory, and the labor conditions involved. This creates transparency. It forces car manufacturers to take responsibility for their supply chains. If a company uses dirty nickel from a polluting mine in Indonesia or blood cobalt from the Congo, the passport will reveal it, and consumers or regulators can punish them. It is a move from a supply chain based on price to a supply chain based on values. The recycling imperative. Ultimately, we cannot keep digging holes in the earth forever. The long-term solution is circular economics. We need to view dead batteries not as waste, but as urban mines. A used battery still contains 95% of its valuable minerals. Companies like Redwood Materials are building factories to shred old batteries and extract the lithium and cobalt to build new ones. If we can reach a 90% recycling rate, we can drastically reduce our dependence on new mining. The goal is a closed loop where the materials circulate endlessly. But currently, recycling is difficult and expensive because batteries were not designed to be taken apart. Engineers need to redesign the battery from scratch with recycling in mind. Beyond lithium, innovation never stops. Scientists are desperately trying to invent batteries that don't need these scarce minerals. One promising candidate is the sodium-ion battery. Sodium is found in salt, which is everywhere and incredibly cheap. These batteries are heavier and hold less energy than lithium, but they are perfect for stationary storage, like storing solar power for a home. Another frontier is solid-state batteries, which replace the flammable liquid inside batteries with a solid material, making them safer and more energy-dense. If we can crack the code on these technologies, we can break the geopolitical stranglehold of the mineral monopolies. Conclusion: the transition to clean energy is necessary. Climate change is an existential threat that we must address. But we must not be naive about the cost. There is no such thing as free energy. Every energy source requires a sacrifice, whether it's the carbon in the air from oil or the scars on the land from mining. The challenge of our generation is not just to go green, but to do it ethically, to ensure that in saving the planet, we don't trample on the poor or destroy the very nature we are trying to protect. The car of the future is clean, but the road to get there is dirty. Discussion. This leads to a difficult moral choice. Question of the day: would you pay more for an electric car or smartphone if you could guarantee that the minerals were mined ethically and sustainably? Or is the priority simply to lower the price to get everyone off fossil fuels as fast as possible? It is a clash between ethics and speed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments with the keyword ethics or speed. I'm English Discovery News. Dig deeper, think critical, and I'll see you in the next episode.